So, when did guitar players become such little bitches? That's my question for you today, YouTube. I was trolling my Facebook feed a little bit earlier today and came across this post in Fender Guitar and Amp Society, which is a good group, by the way. If you're not a member, you should become one. But I came across this interesting post. A person, obviously, with a Fender Telecaster has posted a picture of their Tele with knurled amplifier knobs rather than regular tuning pegs, which on the face of it, might seem like a strange thing to do. But if you think about it, if you have ever tried to twist your wrist into a contorted, inhuman position to get your fingers on a tuning peg to try to tune it up, a full step or a half step or what have you, that it's really not very ergonomic, and that this design is probably superior, to the original design. But, rather than putting things in that sort of perspective and having an engineering mind, as you would expect a bunch of guys to have, what do we have here? We have just a festival of bitches. No, I would not like this. Well, the original question obviously was, is this something that's cool, yes or no? Would you have it on your guitar? No, I'll stick with the originals. No, I'd pass. But admire the creativity. At least he's given a nod to the creativity. This person doesn't even understand why you would need them, which should be apparent, I would think. No, laugh out loud. I think it's cool. Well, I mean, he's actually thinking it looks cool, I guess. But everything is no. I mean, hundreds of people have, 612 people have responded, and it has like over 300 comments of mostly no's. I don't know what these people are doing. How can I get removed from a Facebook group? I know. Let's post this picture. It's just funny to me that a bunch of dudes would have such a bitch attitude toward image. When did we become so image obsessed as guitar players? When did this happen? Was it in the 50s? Was it was it wanting to look like Les Paul? Was it wanting to in the 60s wanting to look like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles? When did this image obsession first occur with respect to guitar players? Because it couldn't have always been the case, could it? I mean, really? Going back to the 30s, I mean, they did start putting bling and things on guitars and stuff back in the 30s to make it more attractive looking. But when did it become such an obsession? It's like we all have to be so homogenized. We all have to look exactly like Eddie Van Halen, or we have to look exactly like this guy. And if it deviates at all, then you look like a fucking idiot. At what point did we become such primadonnas as guitar players, rather than looking at things from an engineering perspective? This has long been my problem with some of the criticisms leveled at Gibson in the Norlin era. In the Norlin era, Gibson was doing a lot of very experimental things, like they had the little flip out. Actually, now that we're on the subject of tuning pegs, you'll remember, some of the Norlin era Gibsons had the little flip outs that became string winders, which was kind of cool. It's different and it's cool. It's thinking outside the box, and actually a lot of guitar players do actually like those. But it's something different. It's something, okay, let's do something different here. Let's come up with some different models. And the problem was guitar players didn't buy them. The guitar playing public wanted to look exactly like the guy that they admired looked, or they wanted to look exactly like this guy, or anything that was different, just didn't sell. And I understand it in a way if you're buying only one guitar and you have a dream guitar, and it's like, oh man, if I could only have one guitar in my whole life, I would have that guitar right there because it looks so cool. I mean, I understand that. However, if you're one of these guys, most guitar players, you have more than one guitar. So, get the one that you think is just the one that you have to have because your hero had it, but then branch out and maybe try a couple other things, and maybe take a chance on some new technology that's put into guitar. One thing I could say about the 80s also, Floyd Rose would have never come along if people hadn't have been open to the idea of something new. But what it took was somebody like Eddie Van Halen or Brad Gillis to grab one of those first and take it up on a big stage, like with Ozzy Osbourne or with Van Halen, and tour the world with it first, and then it became acceptable. But somebody has to get there first and has to be a big star doing it. The problem is we're not creating very many guitar heroes anymore. So how are new guitars going to break the scene or become staples if you don't have these big guitar gods like we used to have, being born every minute? It's just not happening anymore. Guitar seems to be on the decline. I think a lot of it actually has to do with attitudes. Everybody wants to believe it's still the 1950s and 1960s, man. What do you think? Reply in the comments. Tell me what you think. I tell you what, as an addendum to this video, I'm actually going to try this. I'm going to grab my Telecaster, and I've got some of these knurled knobs. Let's stick some on my Telecaster, and I'll test it out and just see what it does. This might be a brilliant idea. The only downfall I can see is that these particular style of knobs, these are pretty damn heavy. So it might actually weigh down the headstock a lot, but it actually might increase sustain as well. If you have a lot of weight, a lot of mass on your headstock, that might actually help with your sustain. But we'll check it out. I've got some of these. Let's put some on and see what it looks like and see how it feels. Okay, these knurled knobs come in a few different styles and sizes and so forth with different knurls on them. The one in the middle is obviously gold-plated. It's not real gold-plated, but it's gold-colored. It is actually slightly smaller than the other two, so it would probably weigh just a tad less. But let's weigh these and see how much they weigh and see how much a full complement of 6 of them on a headstock would come to. Okay, this style is clocking in at almost 30 grams, 29.8 grams. Let's check out the other one. As I suspected, this one's coming in slightly less, 26.4 grams. So if you do the math, 3 of these is going to be about 90 grams, and 6 of them will be 180 grams. By contrast, this original tuning button from my 2006 American Standard Telecaster clocks in at about 7 grams. So yeah, there's going to be a big difference there as far as weight is concerned, and that, I think that part is not in dispute. But what is in dispute is whether or not it's a good idea to do it. Let's look at it on the guitar. Okay, this tuning peg was removed with the string still on, and so what has happened is the tension of the string has actually sprung this out. So it's actually, the tension of the string is pushing this downward, and there's not enough of anything here left to grip onto. So we're going to have to put the tuning peg back on, lower the tension or reduce the tension to 0, and then try again. Okay, there we go. Now we have the tension reduced to 0, and we have some play here that we can work with. Let's try to attach this knurled knob and see what happens. Okay, we've got one knurled knob on here, and that's really all we need for testing purposes, so we'll just put this one on. But one sort of flaw I see is that you'll notice this thing wobbles back and forth. That's because these really aren't designed to be affixed to these shafts. You would really need a hole down the center here and have them affixed the same way that these are through the top. That would be ideal. That way you wouldn't have to rely on the screw, which is actually creating a situation where it's off center from the post. But let's see. Let's tighten this thing up. I'm getting a little bit of rub there. Let me actually loosen this and then scoot it out a little bit more. The other problem I see with this is that as you increase the tension on the string, you're back to the situation you had before where this bottom piece, the tension is actually pushing this piece this way. So it's bottoming out. So the knurled knob, you'll see right there, it gets closer and closer to the headstock until it actually touches it at a certain point. That's because there's nothing really underneath to stop it. You can see it's kind of hollowed out underneath right there. It's hollowed out so much that unlike these, it doesn't hold itself in place. So we need to do something to mitigate that. Let's see if we can find some washers or something for that. All right, we have a couple nylon washers. Let's try a couple of these, or maybe one of them. All right, here we are with the nylon washer in place underneath, and it's got a lot more clearance. Let's see if it actually works. It's a hell of a lot smoother, that's for sure. And it doesn't seem to be popping out quite yet. Let's keep putting tension on. But see what I mean about the wobble? See, it's going this way and then back and forth. So, you know, you might run into a situation where you could not actually do this and have them work with the current design. But look at the difference. See, I have to actually put my fingers correctly on this. I have to twist my wrist into a certain position. Now that's why you have string winders, because you go this far and then you have to come back and go this far again. And if you're in between, if it's in a weird spot and you have to get that correct tuning, you might get in a situation where your whole elbow has to come backwards like this just to get a very slight tuning. Whereas on these, you're always in this position. You just lift up, turn more, and lift up like this. I'm convinced that if the shaft, the hole that comprises the shaft, if that hole was a bit smaller, that it was the correct size for the tuners, and if there was a mounting screw on the end rather than on the side like these amplifier knobs are, this would be a fantastic design. We just want to make sure that the knurled knobs were the right size, that they didn't bump into each other. So you want to leave enough room where you can get to the next one easily. But man, that's actually a really damn good idea. I'll tell you what, the first guy who perfects this, if you can sell him for a reasonable price, I'll buy a set. How's that? Okay, as a final illustration of what I'm talking about, I have completely slackened the B string and the high E string. And what I'm going to do is show you the regular way you would have to come up to a pitch, and the way with this knurled knob. And I think you'll see the ergonomics involved. So let's tune the B. See how my wrist is going into kind of this position, then I have to come back, and then this position again, like this. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal until you have a fine-tuning issue and you have to kind of, and your peg is in the wrong position, say back this way, and you have to actually contort your wrist into a position to get a fine tune in a weird position. And you're doing that live, not really ideal. Yeah, there's certain angles where it doesn't matter. It's fine. You just, no big deal. But certain other angles, not fun. And I think you all know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've been playing guitar for any period of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, let's tune our E up now, and you'll see the difference. Look at my arm, it's straight. I'm not having to do anything with the angle of my wrist. I'm not using my whole wrist. My wrist should be used strumming or you know, or whatever. You shouldn't have to tune with your wrist like this. That's why they invented tuning the peg winders when you're coming up to a pitch like this. But if you don't need a little extra piece of equipment that's going to get lost or in your bag somewhere, you don't know where the hell it is, which it always does. When you need them most, you can never find them. But look at this. Look how simple that was. Stretch the string, do it again. Now I'm in tune. So there you have it. Somebody please make a real set of these. I would actually buy those. Thanks for watching. If you guys haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button. And for now, y'all take care.